Okay, it seems that the logging in has slowed down a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Just a reminder, my name is Andrea, and today's training is going to be over team admin features. During this training, though, I will also be recapping some of the basic stuff of creating a loop and sending documents for agents. So if you're somebody who's on this call that is not a team admin, don't worry, I will still also go over some beginner concepts as well. And then a little bit later on today at 11 a.m., we're going to look at advanced training. So anything that you have as far as questions for this training, I'll be pausing frequently throughout. Feel free to either unmute yourself or ask your questions in the chat. And then for today's agenda, as I mentioned before, we're going over admin features specifically for the teams. We'll take a look at what is different in the account settings for team admin. We'll look at the templates and how we can customize team templates. We'll look at tasks and reporting. Then we'll actually create a loop on behalf of a team member. And this is where we're going to recap some of those things like loop creation, preparing documents, and sharing documents. For any of us that are joining this call that is brand new to Dotloop and wasn't able to attend those trainings last week, I'll be saying the word loop a lot today. And a loop is just a transaction within Dotloop. So it's all of the related people, documents, and details for a transaction. But I'm going to go ahead and pull up Dotloop now. So I'm inside of Dotloop. I've just logged in, and this is my home page here. This is also called the My Loops page. More specifically, I am in an admin profile, meaning I have some additional features I can do as a team admin. And the way that I know that I'm in an admin profile is by looking in the top left here. I see that teens emblem. It tells me which team I'm an admin for right below that. And if I go to the far right where this tile is, I am clicked into the one that says admin. So to talk about this tile a little more, I just want to remind you all that your unique member ID is listed underneath your name here. It's important to know where this is located in case you ever contact our support team. They will ask for this member ID. We're going to look at the My Account section here in a few seconds, but underneath this, we have 3 different areas of profiles. And this is going to be the most areas you see is as a team admin. The first is My Profiles. And if you are somebody who ever acts as an agent in addition to admin work, you'll have a profile listed here. This profile might be named different than mine. Mine is named My Profile. You might see something that says default profile or your actual name. Underneath My Profiles are your admin profiles. So this is the profile we want to be clicked in to do any of our admin work. We're going to go through what dictates admin work here in a few moments. And then as a team admin, we have the additional ability to act on behalf of an agent. So you will see all of the team members added to your particular team listed in this last section that says acting as a team profile. So if you need to do something for an agent on your team, you click on their name here. You can do things like create a loop, prepare documents, share documents, and their client is going to see it from their name. So it doesn't say that you're the one who shared with them. But within Dotloop, it's recorded as your name, so we can see who actually took that action. So I have a fake profile here added as an agent, and we'll act on behalf of them a little bit later on. I just want to pause here. Any questions so far? Okay, great. I'm going to click into my account settings here. Just want to quickly remind you that on this first page, the more you have filled out, the more information that's going to autofill into your documents when you're preparing them. So it's highly beneficial to take a few seconds to fill out this page. And there is a save button in this bottom right-hand corner. But what is new for team admins is going to be underneath this profile section on the left. When I click on profiles, I have a profile for my admin. And in here, I'm able to update a couple of things that will benefit my agents. So if I put things like broker's license number and company information, this does trickle down into the agent's profiles so that it autofills for your agents on your team. So it saves them some time for having to fill out this section within their profile. You also have a set of notification settings for your admin profile. So you have a set for each profile that you have access to. So as an admin, if you want to be notified for these particular things within Dotloop, then you can leave all of these selected. And if you want to be emailed as an admin for these, you can also leave these selected. And as always, if you're getting too many emails, feel free to visit the notification section under the profiles, unselect what you do not want an email for, and then again, save your changes. So I'm going to go back up and point out that I also have a profile available for the agents I can act on behalf of. And here we don't have many options, we just have notification settings. You can elect to receive emails for a particular agent or agents. So unlike your own notification settings, these are all unselected. But if you want to get an email for Dotloop Pro, for example, you can select what you want to be notified for via email and then save that change here. Any questions on notification settings? Okay. I am going to navigate to our next section then. So at the top navigation bar, right next to your initials, there should be these two pieces of paper that look like templates. And so I'm going to click here to open up our template section. And underneath templates, as an admin, you'll see a couple of different areas. We have our document templates, our task templates, clauses, workflows, and loop templates. If you are clicked into an agent profile, you're only going to see those first three sections of documents, tasks, and clauses. This workflow and loop template section will not appear unless you're actually in an admin profile. So I want to talk through this section, and I'll highlight the difference of what you can do as an agent versus an admin in each of these sections. So first are our document templates. What we see here on the left are all of the folders we already have access to. And each of these folders will have interactive documents in them, meaning they're already set up with things like text boxes, initial fields, signature boxes, etc. So you will notice one of two different sources of documents. The first are documents that you will have internally requested to be set up. If you are an admin, you will see this top folder called DocSpot. And within DocSpot, you are able to upload PDFs and request that our team makes it interactive for you. Once that they are completed, they will be put into the master folder of whichever team you're an admin of. So for this example, they would be put into this Bob Kane's team docs folder. You do not have a limit of how many documents you can request to be set up. The only limiting factor here is it has to be a PDF, so PDF format. So once you have your PDF, you can click this browse tile here, upload that PDF to this folder. You can either drag and drop it or click on it and hit open. And once you have your PDFs uploaded, you're going to come to these three dots next to new folder and hit request documents to be set up. The admin that requests these documents to be set up will receive an email notification immediately saying that we've received your documents, and it also gives you a code for your request. Just in case if you need to call our support team and ask about that, you can have that code to reference. As I mentioned before, once they're completed and already interactive, they will be removed from the DocSpot folder and placed into the appropriate master folder. And from there, anybody on the team, including agents, can see those and use those within your loop. Now, if you are wanting to set up your own documents and make them interactive, on our advanced training today, I will show you some tips and tricks on how you can set it up. Once we have documents in a folder, we have additional editing abilities from our overflow icon on the right-hand side. So as an admin, we see quite a few options once we press this button here. The first is edit. And if I click edit, you are able to give your document a description so that agents can see that description and understand what the document is, if it's not clear just from the name, and then add that to their loop to use. After edit, we have either marking it optional or required to submit. This refers to submitting for review, so compliance review. If it's marked optional, which is the default setting, then an agent does not have to submit it for review. If it's something that needs to be seen every time your team admin are reviewing documents, you can mark it required, which means an agent has to do something on that document before they can submit for review. We can also make a copy. So if we wanted to copy it to another folder that we had editing access to, we can do so, or we can copy it to an already created loop. We can download this. This will just download a copy to our computer files. We can rename the document. So if I press rename here, I get this blinking cursor. I can edit the name however I need to and hit enter on my keyboard to save the changes. And then lastly, we can delete this document. Now, when we're working inside of loops, we do not see the word delete, and that's for your all's protection, so no contract documents accidentally get deleted. However, in the template section, you can delete. And it's important for me to note that if you do delete, there's not an undo button. So please use caution when deciding what to delete and what to keep. And only admins are able to add and delete from these folders that aren't association folders, which is source number 2. So anything that is an association folder is going to have the full up-to-date library for that association. However, you do have to be a member of that association to see this library. Most of these use verification via NRDS number and then your last name. I am not a member of this association, for example, so if I hit continue here, I'm going to get a message saying that my NRDS number doesn't match their records. The good news is if you input your NRDS number either here or back in that My Account area, it does save, so you don't have to keep typing it each time. You saw this got pre-populated here. I just need to hit continue to get access if I were a member. Any question on managing documents?
I guess really quick on the documents. So if you're acting as an admin, which you would need to be to set these templates up, if you're not, so like I'm not a licensed realtor, I work for Bob Kane's, would I need to use his NRDS ID in this profile, like my admin profile, so that things don't, get messed up that I wouldn't have access to or something? Or would that really not matter if we're just editing templates?
It shouldn't matter for the most part. To access the association folders as an admin, one admin just needs to go in there. So I imagine Bob would also be had an admin profile since it's his team. So from his profile, once he puts in his NRDS number and his last name, it will grant access to all admin for that verification period. Each association uses a different verification period. Some ask that you verify daily, some ask monthly, some it's barely at all. So it just depends on which association.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I also want to point out that these are the folder names on the left-hand side. And once you click the three dots next to the folder itself, we have some additional options. First is share. We want to share folders that we want agents to see. So if it's something that only you need to see or admin need to see, we can leave those unshared. But if you set it up with the intention of agents pulling from these folders, you'll just click share so they can see them and use them when in their templates. You can duplicate a folder, and that will make a copy of the entire folder and all documents within it. You can rename a folder, and that acts the same way as renaming a document, and just press enter to save. And you can also delete a folder. It makes me nervous to even hover next to delete, but that also acts the same way, that if you delete a folder, there's not an undo feature. So if it was an accident, you just have to recreate that folder. I am going to go ahead and remove this offer here from DocSpot. And as you can see, nothing popped up asking me if I was sure, and that's because this folder is not shared. However, if you go to delete a document from a folder that was shared for agents, you would get a pop-up asking if you were sure. So you do have like one chance to kind of back out. I'm going to scroll down to this folder that says placeholders and talk about another thing that only admin can set up, and that is document placeholders. We looked at a placeholder in the beginner agent training, and its intent is a reminder to the agent to upload something into its place. So if its source is coming from outside of Dotloop, for example, like your earnest money deposit check, you can create a placeholder to remind agents to upload that into their loop. So it looks slightly different than a document. It's light gray in color. And the way you can create a new placeholder is to go to the three dots. Let's go into a folder we have access to. Go to the three dots next to add a document and hit add document placeholder. And it will always be named new document placeholder when you first add it. And you just come to your overflow icon and hit rename to give it the correct name for the document. So only admin can create placeholders, but agents are able to add them to their loop and use them inside of their loop by adding the correct file within the placeholder. I'll remove that one as well. So our next section inside of our templates area is going to be task lists. We see these task lists because they are being shared from the office and the company above. So the way teams work is that a team is nested underneath an office and the company profile, and there are admins at each level. So anything you do as a team admin, only the agents on your team are going to see it, not agents at the office as a whole. So we can create task lists to keep the transactions organized. It's up to you guys what task lists you want to create. And again, if we create them here, any agent on the team is able to add it to their loop to give it a due date or assign it to somebody to complete. To create a new task list, we just have to press this plus task list button on the top right-hand corner, give our task list a name, and then after that, we hit this create task list button. And then we just have to type what task we want to add and hit enter to add it. And we can add as many tasks as we like. And then from our overflow icon, we are able to rename the task or remove it from this list. You will see the option to assign it and give it a due date here. However, think of this as a generic way to assign it. I can say it's due today, and whenever this is added to a loop, whatever day that is, it will default to that being the due date. We get more specific with due dates and who it's assigned to once it's actually a part of a loop. As far as the assign to option, it only lets you assign to somebody who is an admin on the team. So the way this team is currently set up, I can only assign it to myself as an admin or Granai's here. But I'm going to go ahead and remove this task list. Again, I will see the word delete here, and I do get an "Are you sure?" pop up. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to skip down to workflows next. So a workflow is what's happening behind the scenes when an agent submits for review. Your offices have workflows set up so that things like your broker can be notified when the buyer rep needs to be signed. And once there's a completed contractor, your broker and admin are notified to review it and make sure that it's compliant. If for some reason at the team level, there's something you need to review, we can set up that workflow, and whatever is marked as the default stage is going to be the first stage it goes to. Agent hits submit for review, we tell it what stage it goes to, and then the admin that goes in there and reviews it manually puts it into its next stage. So for example, you could say, oh, this looks great, it's been approved, and put it in approved, or no, something's wrong or missing, let's put it in to return to agent, and the agent will get notified no matter what stage you use to update. We can also set specific notifications. So we can say all admins on the team get notified, or maybe it just needs to be Christine, for example, that needs to get notified, or whoever that is an admin. Any questions over tasks or workflows?
I have a question. Is there going to be a function where when we log into Dotloops, we can see a calendar for the week with all the tasks outlined?
That is a great question. So there's kind of two different answers. There's not a calendar feature, but there is this task feature, and it's actually what we'll cover next. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in depth here in a few moments. So all of your current tasks are listed here. And we also have integration partners. So if you were interested in integrating with something like Google Calendar, for example, or Outlook, it can pull over your tasks to your personal calendar if you do that integration. I will put in a support article over the calendar integrations in a chat here. Let me find. I think Google Calendar is probably our most common. So if you did want to integrate with Google Calendar, this will tell you exactly what the integration does and give you instructions on how to do so. Great question. Any other questions? Okay. I'm going to talk about loop templates next. So right now, we don't have any current loop templates created at the team level. Just a reminder, a loop template is part of the loop creation process. It's that step 2 where we select which state and transaction type we are doing in our loop, and it preloads the needed documents and task list to our loop. Right now, loop templates live at the office level, so anything we see as an option is managed by our office admin. However, if you guys want to get more specific, or if you guys do things slightly different from your office, as a team admin, you can set up loop templates for your team to use. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this try it out button. Let's just do task listing right now. You select what type of transaction it is when you're creating a template, and then create template here. We have quite a few sections for loop templates. We can add folders for documents. And then when we hit add document, we can select what documents that need to be preloaded from any of the folders we have access to from our document section. We also can select a workflow. So if you guys did have your own workflow process, we can select that here so that it saves a click for the agent. They just need to hit submit for review and they automatically goes to the correct workflow. We can load those task lists. So again, that's already a part of their loop when they create the loop. You just hit load template here and anything that you have access to back in your task section is available for you to load. And then we have two sections at the bottom. We have a roles section. Think of roles as any role a participant in the loop could occupy. So for example, this is a listing loop template. We're likely going to be adding sellers. So we can give somebody the role of seller, and then we are asked to collect this additional information. This information is then mapped to documents, so that documents autofill with the correct seller information. So if you guys feel like there are additional things you want to collect for either reporting reasons or autofill reasons from a role, we can hit add field here, and then you're able to name your field however you like, and that is also input under this role section. In a similar vein, we have loop fields at the bottom. So think about this as anything that can autofill into documents that is not participant related. So instead of like a seller's name, we have the things like your property address, your financial information, important dates, listing information. Here we're able to customize as well. So if there's something that maybe you don't need in that view details section, we can remove it. Or if there's something missing from one of these sections that you would like to add, we can also add that. And then, as always, any change you make, there is a save button in the bottom right-hand corner. Once a loop template is created, it just needs to be enabled for the agents on the team to see it and be able to use it. You can enable here, or we have our overflow icon on the right side of the template name. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this loop template. Any questions?
So I do have a question on this. Of these templates, like when you were down further down where you could click on like below the roles. Well, actually, I guess the roles part too. Like if you are adding these to your template, is this information gonna pop up and prompt you to supply before you even start the transaction? So you're not having to go back in and like add everything as you go, or is it just basically including it in your loop to be filled out at some point? I guess I'm trying to see like.
Yeah, where it's at in the loop.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great question. So this part, the roles part, is when you add somebody to the loop and you give them a role. So when we're inside of a loop, I add Corey client and I say he's the seller. These fields here are what populate next. That is when you'll be prompted. So for roles, it's when you physically add a person and select a role. That's when these pop up. For everything below roles, these loop fields, this is directly related to that view details page of the loop. When we create a loop here in a few moments, I'll point that out again. So this, when you click view details, anything that's on this page will be on view details for you to input the information there. It doesn't automatically prompt you to input that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good question. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to remove this now. And I'm going to go ahead and go to our next section I want to talk about, and that's our tasks. So we had this question earlier, if there's a calendar in Dotloop where you can just see all of your tasks. This is the closest thing that's already built into Dotloop that comes to that. As you can see, it isn't in a calendar format, but there is this section that tells you all of your tasks that are currently assigned to you, overdue in your loops, been completed in the last 7 days of your loops, are all tasks. I don't have any active task list right now, so that's why I keep getting this no task match your criteria. But you can click through these, and if there were active task lists, it tells you the name of the task, and to the right, it tells you the name of the loop. So this is the global way to manage all active task lists without having to click into each loop individually. However, if you wanted to see the loop, you could click on the name of the loop next to the task that's showed here, and that would bring you inside of the loop for you to take a look at. But from this section, you are able to mark it complete, assign it to somebody, give it a due date, or just view it. Any questions on our task section?
I have a quick question. For one transaction, if we input all the dates, the date that inspection is due, the date that EMD is due, et cetera, can we print that task list and send it to our client to say, here's some key dates I'll be tracking for you?
You would have to take a screenshot to print. There's not a print button, unfortunately, right next to the task list. Any other questions? Okay. I'm gonna skip over this smiley face with no eyes. That again brings us back to our main My Loops page, and I'm gonna go to reporting next. So in our reporting tab here, as an admin, we have two sections. If you're only an agent, you just have this first section here. So this first page is going to be charts that automatically update as you start to create loops or as your agents start to create loops. If you are an admin, you can take a look at either all of the agents on your team, or you can take a look at a specific agent here by selecting their name. You also can change the time frame. You can see year to date, last month, 2 or 3. And if we scroll down here for loops year to date, you can tell in June at least there's one loop in this starting phase. If I were curious to see which loop matched that criteria, I can click on the corresponding color here and it will filter out. So we have this training loop that is in the starting phase because the status is marked new. It does use the transaction type and status to determine where it is at in reporting. So that reporting page is only as good as the information agents are using to update their loops. That's another reason why updating the status of a loop is really important. And then the additional thing we have as admin is our report builder. So in the top left here, I have this report builder button. If I click it, this is a way for you to run a full report. You just have to give your report a name, select which criteria you want to run in your report here. If you leave everything unselected, it pulls all information. And then lastly, we have to say what date filter we're using. So for example, we could look at all loops created in a particular month or maybe closing in a particular month. After you make those selections, you hit this create report button here. The admin that created the report will receive an email when the report is ready to view. And then all other admin on that team can come here to this report section at the very bottom, see all reports that were ran and click it to look at it closely. It is in CSV format, which is an Excel file. So it will open up an Excel book for you to take a look at whatever parameters you selected here. Any questions on reporting? Okay. So let's go ahead and do a loop quickly here. So I'm coming back to my loops page. However, I don't want to hit add loop on this page because I'm still in that admin profile. And in this example, I want to create a loop for one of our team members down here. So I want to use this Dotloop Pro profile here. So Dotloop Pro wants a loop created, doesn't have time, maybe they're out in the field showing houses, and so they ask me to create that loop and get the paperwork started for them. So I'm just clicking on this profile here first. You can tell that I'm acting on behalf because again, it has the name of the profile. So instead of the words Dotloop Pro, you'll likely see the agent's name here. And then now I'm going to go ahead and hit this add loop button to create that loop for Dotloop Pro here. Just a reminder, there are 4 steps to creating a loop. So our first step is to give our loop a name. And I'm going to use the same property address we used on the beginner agent training. So I'm just going to start to type in that address here. And I'm going to select Google Maps. And then I'm going to hit continue. This is going to be a purchase transaction, so we're gonna pretend that we already have that buyer rep signed and we're gonna do the actual contract document. So I'm gonna click here. These are those loop templates that were set up at the office level. So if you guys did set up loop templates at the team level, you would see those first and then the office ones underneath. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit VA purchase transaction and continue to move on to step 3. This step is where you upload a photo, which is completely optional, but we will upload one today. And then I'm going to hit done to finish creating the loop here. And then once Dotloop's done creating it, I can click here or here to view that loop.
If we were able to select the property that's already listed in MLS, will that photo automatically generate, or we still update one?
That is a great question. So most of the time when you are linking to an MLS listing, if there is a photo, it does pull into the loop. I think it depends on which MLS that the photo pulls, but for 90% of the time, the photo does automatically is brought into your loop.
Thank
And your photo shows here. If you ever want to remove it, you can click this X here or go to your view details page where you can upload a new photo. Or if you skipped doing that in the beginning and want to load it later, that's going to be in our view details page. So a reminder on how our loops are set up. We have the title of our loop at the top, the transaction type right underneath, and the status. If we selected a loop template, this transaction type will already be selected for us. However, it does not automatically update the loop status. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in this pre-offer status. This last option here is view details. And this view details page is kind of like that cover sheet of the loop where all pertinent details live. So this is what matches that loop template area that I showed where it says loop fields. Anything added there as a potential field will have a corresponding spot here. If you link to an MLS listing, more details than just the property address will be brought into this section. And if you fill in all other missing details, when you go to autofill your documents, it pulls from this page. So another reminder is view details and autofill are best friends. They share everything with one another. So either if you fill it out on the document first or view details first, at most you're only inputting that information once. So you can scroll through here, put in any missing information that you like. And then after you do so, again, there's a save button in the bottom right or in the top right on this page as well. Here's where I can remove that photo again and upload a new one if I'd like. Another thing I can do on my view details screen is rename my entire loop. So if there was a typo or if I named it after the client and want to update it to the property address, you can click directly on the title at the top. You get that blinking cursor for you to make edits and hit enter, or you can use this section that says loop name here. Instead of hitting enter though, you'll just save after you make the changes. If you are clicking around inside of a loop enough, you will notice there are 4 or 5 ways to add people to your loop. However, there is one section that I prefer to use because it does give you all editing abilities. So in my view detail section, I can add somebody and I can edit somebody in my loop. However, I'm missing the ability to remove them here, which is why I prefer back in the main page of the loop to use this people section. So this people section is the one that remains supreme because it gives me the ability to add, to edit, and to remove from the overflow icon. So I am acting on behalf of Dotloop Pro here, so I need to give them a role in this loop. They are the buying agent. Giving yourself a role, or if you're acting on behalf, giving your agent a role in the loop is going to determine where their information autofills on documents. So it's a very important step. And then we're going to want to add clients. So just a reminder on how you add clients. You click this add person here. I'm going to use Corey again and click his name. And as soon as I did so, all of those additional role fields that we saw back in the Loop template section populated. So if I input this information here for Corey, that would be auto-filled into documents where appropriate. Another reminder is that you will see 2 checkboxes in this screen. The first is send intro email. If I select it, I do get the ability to type a message that Corey will see in that intro email. And the only other thing Corey sees is the title of the loop. He does see the photo if a photo was uploaded. And then besides that, it's just a get started button. If he presses get started, it will ask him if he wants to create a free Dotloop account. And if he does so, it doesn't hurt anything, but it does add an additional step when he goes to sign documents. So instead of just going directly to the documents and him start signing, he'll be asked to log into Dotloop first before going to that screen. So it does add one step on their end. For that reason alone, I elect not to send the intro email. However, if you want to, I actually, this time, so I don't think I showed you guys this last time. I will go ahead and send it and I'll show you what this intro email looks like from Corey's perspective. So you can make that decision if you want to utilize this feature or not. I do want to stress that your client does not need a Dotloop account in order to sign. It's completely optional. The last checkbox you see is add to my team. This should only be used for real estate professionals on the same side of the transaction as you. You won't need to add your TCs to the team because they're going to be added as admin on the team, so they can already act on your behalf. But if you're like co-listing with somebody or co-buying agent with someone, feel free to add them to your team. We do not want to add our clients or the co-op agent to the team. And the reason why is because once they accept that team invitation, it is something that cannot be undone. They will see and be able to edit everything in the loop that you can see and edit. You will get this pop-up though if you do click the add to my team feature telling you just that. So if you did so by accident, you can hit cancel or X here. But I'm gonna go ahead and hit add person for Corey here. And the way we would remove somebody or edit them if you made a mistake is from our overflow icon by clicking edit or remove. Our loop has 3 main sections. So besides the view details in this view, we have our documents, our people, and our task list. So if you're somebody that utilizes tasks, they're going to be showing up here. I can load a template as an example, hit add. And once you assign your task to somebody specific inside of the loop here and give it a due date by using one of these generic options or a specific date here, if the person you assigned it to has a Dotloop account, they will get email reminders reminding them to complete the task when the due date has approached. And all you have to do to mark a task complete is check it off on the left-hand side. For those of us who love tasks and want to see task first, we do have the ability to move our task list to the top of the loop so that when you open up a loop, you see tasks, then documents, then people. But by default, tasks live at the bottom of the loop. Any questions on adding people or tasks?
Yeah, again, with tasks, we probably don't want to add our client to a loop, is what I'm hearing you say. But if we want them to see what's going on with the transaction in terms of EMD arrived, if we just want them to log in and track instead of us keep emailing them, they would have to be part of the loop.
Yeah, so if they had a Dotloop account, you could assign them to a task and they would get that reminder. So if you wanted to, say, create a free Dotloop account so you can utilize tasks to keep them up to date, that is an option. Just know that they will have to log in first before they sign any documents.
But it sounds like the better practice is just use this to keep ourselves organized and keep communicating with our clients through phone or email or text to tell them what's going on.
Yes, I find that if clients get too many emails from Dotloop, then they start to ignore those emails. And when it's important, like, please sign this document, that gets lost in the list of emails they're getting from Dotloop. So if they have an account, they will get more of those email notifications from things like notes and task lists. So if they don't create that account, it stays streamlined on their end. They're only seeing the documents you're sharing with them for signatures.
Okay.
Great call out. Any other questions? Okay. Let's prepare a document quickly and share it out with the clients, just as a reminder of what that process is, and we'll switch over to Corey's perspective. I'm just gonna open up one document for today. So I'm just gonna click here, but a reminder, if you wanna open up more than one, you can select those here. And once you have your document selected, you hit this open button here. But I'm just going to do this exclusive right. Here's that autofill pop-up that is best friends with the view details page. So if I input information here first, it does save back in view details. You'll notice there are a lot less details, and that's because it's only the relevant information for the documents you have open. So let me just put in some dummy information here. And then I'm going to hit autofill. So Dotloop does highlight in yellow what has been autofilled, so you don't have to strain your eyes trying to find where that information went to. However, as soon as you save at the top, that yellow goes away, so your clients are not seeing highlighted fields. Another big reminder is when you're working in documents, it does not autosave, so please save. You can always do so from this button at the top. If it is gray, that just means there are no new changes to save. Also, we have a short key or a hotkey, which is a shortcut, and that is Control-Shift-S on your keyboard to save if you're using a PC. If you're using a MacBook, it's Command-Shift-S. Whatever shows up on the right side for you when you're in documents is correct. It's based on which device you're currently logged in. So I'm on a PC. As I scroll through, I can also update any missing information by clicking directly on the checkbox or text box that needs to be filled in. Another reminder is anything that's showing up in this coral color means you are the one set to sign there. If you are set to sign there, you'll notice when you're acting on behalf of somebody, so these are for my team admins, it pulls up your e-sign name. So if you're signing for an agent, you will have to update this, or you can let the agent know that the document's ready for them to log in and add their signature. I'm also going to scroll down here and everything looks good, so I am ready to share. I'm able to share from within the document editor and from that loop page. So I'm going to hit share in the top right here. It tells me which document or documents I am sharing in this first section. It tells me who already has access. So the admin have access, which is what I'm a part of in this scenario, and the agent in which I created on behalf of has access. Next, it tells me who I can share it with. So I've only added Corey here, so that's why he's the only one showing up. And he's already selected because he has fields assigned to him, and can sign is already selected from the right. As a reminder, there are 4 share permissions. View only means they can only view the document. They can't edit it in any way. Can sign, they can sign an initial. Can fill and sign, initial, plus fill out the document. So this use case is going to be when the client themselves need to fill out the document on things like the seller's property disclosure, for example. And then our last one here is can edit in private. While we don't want to use can edit in private with our client, it is okay to do so with the co-op agent, because if they are a Dotloop user, it allows them to set it up for their client signatures and initials. I'm going to leave it selected as can sign, so I only want Corey to initial this document and sign it. And here's area number 2 or 3 in which you can add somebody to the loop, but I'm only able to add them. I can't remove them or edit them in this area. I also can
Hey, Andy?
enter, yeah.
If we can just circle back there, this we shouldn't have to say this, but let's just remind everybody that if you're going to have your admins sign on behalf of the licensed agent, we have to make sure that they are licensed in that jurisdiction, and not having them sign it. Ultimately, we have to hold the licensee accountable for that. So just to make sure that we don't have unlicensed persons signing documents on your behalf. I shouldn't have to say that, but just wanted to make sure. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's a great call out. That's why I personally elected not to sign on behalf here, just to show you that you can skip the signature process and have the actual agent log in and sign. The last little section of this pop-up is to enter a custom message. If we do so, that is included in the email that your client receives. And there's also the ability to attach a PDF to email down here. Another reminder is that PDF attachments are more universal than Dotloop links. So if we're working with somebody that isn't as tech savvy, it could be confusing to them and they could assume that that's where they need to sign instead of opening up the Dotloop link. I am going to leave off a PDF attachment this time though. I'm gonna go ahead and hit share in the bottom right. I get confirmation the document's been shared. It tells me the status is waiting on others, and I'm gonna hit done. And now if I use the back arrow in the top left here to go back inside of my loop, I also see that status on the right-hand side. I can hover over it and it tells me who it's waiting on and what action. So it's waiting on Corey to sign. Another thing I want to point out is every single loop has an activity log. All activity is logged in the activity log. So if the client views the document, that will be logged there. And more importantly, when we're dealing with team admins, if somebody did something on your behalf, that is logged on the activity log. So it tells the agent that I am the admin who shared on their behalf, and this is who I shared it to. This is the status right now. So it's not lost anywhere of who actually did the sharing, but when we switch over to Corey's perspective here in a second, you will see it as if the agent actually shared the document. Any questions over sharing permissions?
Yeah, and when we share right now in DocuSign, we can set a signing order.
Yes. That is something that it was mentioned in the beginner agent trainings that is in beta testing for Dotloop. So it's not a part of this view of Dotloop that we're looking at now, but it is a part of Dotloop beta testing. This is also called Dotloop 2.0. If you were interested in utilizing beta, I will give the caveat that a lot is in flux right now. There's a lot changing as far as the view and the abilities. But you do have the ability to toggle in the top right of your loop to see that beta feature and use a share route that is available also in DocuSign.
So right now, if it's a listing agreement and just to keep my side efficient, I'm going to send it to Dan and to my two sellers and myself, and I'm going to sign the lead-based paint and everybody's going to do their thing, but Dan won't have the option to review it once they all sign. He's going to have to keep checking back until everybody signs before he signs.
So you can always in this view hit the submit for review button, and that will notify your particular broker, depending on where you're set up as far as office goes, to go in there and take a look. So he doesn't have to keep guessing. You can elect to notify him by using submit for review. I do just want to remind you all that that is in the meantime until that share route is an official feature within Dotloop.
Kathy, this was the big red flag that I brought up last week when we had our training, is since they don't have the routed signing like set up, as the primary function in Dotloop, that was a big like ew to me, because right now in DocuSign, we have our seller sign and then it automatically goes to Dan after the seller signs. So your listing agreement gets signed over the weekend and you're not having to log into a system and click to submit for review and stuff like that. So I know we talked about that a little bit the other day. And my question would be, can you toggle to beta just to add a signing order and then go back to primary? I mean, to the OG version of Dotloop, or do you like, once you go to beta, you have to stay in beta, or the functionality is different, like?
Yeah, so you can technically toggle between two. However, I noticed just anecdotally, the most issues people have with beta is when they keep toggling back and forth. So my recommendation is that if you're going to test out beta, I would do so for the entire life cycle of the loop. And you can make that decision from there if you want to keep using it in beta or not. Just so that it doesn't start to affect your usage with Dotloop from toggling back and forth. But technically, yes, you could toggle back and forth. Just the more you do so, the more wonky it gets.
Okay, and then so if we use the beta version so that we can add our signing order and stuff like that, you wouldn't have to use that review button to send to the broker for signatures because he's already going to get it. Is that is that going to be an issue on the office/broker side if things are just being sent? Like, Dan, if we're doing it the way we've been doing it in DocuSign, where you just get documents to sign, is that going to create a hiccup on the processing side of things as far as?
Nope.
Oops.
Actually, it won't. So their view of it is if the admin doesn't elect to do beta, they're still able to sign if you're using beta this same way I assume it works in DocuSign, and it doesn't affect anything on their end. They can see the updated, they'll get the notification, they'll see the updated document once signed. So it does, if you use beta, it will remove the need to submit for review when collecting broker signature. I also want to stress that you're still wanting to submit for review at the end of your transaction. The submit for review button, instead of being in the top right in beta, is right here next to the folder name, just so that they can make sure it's compliant. So, but you're only using review for actual compliance reasons if you're utilizing beta, and then you can use the share route to notify your broker that a signature is needed.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's,
so
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I guess my question was, so we have a new listing, we send it out, everybody signs, including the broker. We would still need to come back into Dotloop and submit for review, even though it's already signed?
At the
Yeah.
end of the transaction, correct, Dan?
Yeah, so we should be doing that immediately anyway. In all circumstances, whenever you have an agreement, whether it's a buyer or a listing or a renter, whatever, you should always hit submit because that's what the law requires, right? So we should be reviewing the file on that immediately as soon as the relationship is signed and in effect. So as a practice of law, we should be doing that.
I just want to make sure it wasn't, you wouldn't be getting double, that's all. I get that we need, that you guys need it, you know, the office needs it. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be like doubling things and making you crazy, that's all.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about doubling that. That's okay. I think we've got that under control.
Okay, thanks.
Do we have a timeline on when that's going to be integrated?
But that's a great question, and the honest answer is no. I don't foresee it being integrated this calendar year at all. It's been in beta testing since January, and the last I heard is they're going to leave it open and testing for at least Q3, if not Q4 as well. But I'm going to go ahead and
Yeah, Andy, I think what you're sensing from our agents is deep concern that really does need to be there. So I know you took note of that in the prior trainings, but that really is going to be a very important factor that really should be pushed up to your developers.
Yeah, I have access to a product feedback link, so I will go ahead and submit that feedback on your all's behalf. Each of you who decide to utilize beta also have this let us know button at the top, and that is also goes to that feedback link where it gets filtered for all similar suggestions that goes to developers. So any type of feedback you also want to provide on an individual level, you can do so from this let us know button, but I will go ahead and submit that on behalf of your all's brokerage. And the reason why I can technically do training in beta, the reason why I usually don't is because so much changes so fast in this beta view that each time I've done training, by the next time I'm doing another training in beta, it already looks different or acts slightly different. But if you guys are interested, maybe in a later training, I know we're talking about doing an additional training after our advanced one. I'll show you how to set that share route feature, since that is the feature you guys are mainly interested in as far as beta goes. But I'm gonna go back into the classic view and I'm gonna switch perspectives to Corey's really quick, just so you can be reminded on how your clients sign. You'll also see here's that intro email I elected to send him earlier. And again, he sees the name of the loop, he sees the photo and that get started button. If he presses get started, it will ask if he wants to sign up for a free account. Here is the actual email that he received when I shared the document over to him though. And once he clicks on this email, he just has to click this view document button. And that is going to bring him into this screen where he can scroll to review the document. And whenever he is ready to start signing, he can click the start signing button in the top right.
Now, Andy, I just wanted to ask again really quick on this. So say you have you're sending a contract out for a buyer and there's what, like 4 or 5 different documents that are required to even, submit it for as whatever. So they're going to get 5 different emails for 5 different documents that they have to sign before you're finished getting everything from your buyer to even submit an offer, right? We talked about that the other day. It's not
Yeah.
all going to be included in one email invitation. So that's another thing I want to make sure that everybody on the call is aware of, is that it's not going to be like DocuSign, where you get one email and everything's included. You're going to need to kind of babysit your clients to make sure that they're signing everything you need.
Let me actually show you that they get one email for all documents you send. So if I sent more than one, they would only get this email and it would say view all documents instead of view documents. What they get separate emails for is for their files. So after they're
Okay.
done signing, they get an individual for each so that they can go in and download each individually.
Okay, I apologize. I misspoke, but that's what it was. Each one will be a separate attachment email once they're done signing.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And that is something I did pass your feedback along already to that team, and I will be very upfront, but that is feedback we get often. So I'm hoping that that is something that is also on the horizon to be added to the beta view as well. I am going to click where it says Corey needs to sign. He also gets the ability to adopt his signature and initials. So if he signs by something else legally, he can make that change here, or he can elect to draw his signature. And then once it looks good on his end, he just needs to hit adopt and sign. And it's gonna automatically take him to the next place he needs to sign. And he just needs to click to apply his preferences that he selected. So once he is done, he is required to hit the finish signing button in order for it to update on Dotloop's side. If he wants to download or print for his files without his signature and initials on it, he can do so from this overflow icon link and hit the download button. Or if he wants a copy with his signature on it, after he gets confirmation that he signed, he can download and print from file. And once we go back into our view of the loop as the agent, we'll get an email saying it's been completed signing. And if I refresh here, it says signed instead of waiting on others. That is also recorded in our activity log where he viewed it and where he signed the document. That takes us to the end of our team admin training, where we did that review of admin abilities in the first half and a kind of an overall beginner review on how to create and prepare documents and share them. Any questions? Okay. So here in about a half hour is the advanced training. Just a reminder of what we're going to be going over on the advanced training. It's going to be the listing side. So we'll take a look at Loop stuff again, but we're also going to take a look at doing things like a host in person signing and how we can set up PDFs so that if you receive an offer from someone outside of Dotloop, you can add things like signature and initial boxes and still collect your client's signatures. So I will see you all then. If you have any questions, feel free to come to that training prepared. We'll have some open Q&A time at the end of that training as well. Thanks, everyone.